Number 10. X-Man. It's not a deadly superhero list without at least one Gray or Summers offspring making the cut, and X-Man is both, genetically speaking at least. X-Man is Nate Gray, who hails from the Age of Apocalypse reality of Earth 295. He is known as X-Man, and is also sometimes referred to as Mutant Jesus, so I think you can imagine what we're working with here. Nate Gray was created by the Mr. Sinister of his reality using the genes of both Jean Grey and Scott Summers. He represents the greatest potential in terms of power for their offspring. But despite being created by Sinister using Grey and Summer genes, he was actually raised by AOA's Forge. Nate Gray is a reality warper, and a mighty one at that. Reality warpers, especially stable ones like Nate, would be extremely dangerous to have in the MCU because they would be limitless in terms of what they could do. Especially Nate Gray, he is very much limitless. And friends, before we move on to our next spot on this list, if you love what we do here at Top 10 Nerd and you love when we talk about comics, be sure to let us know you love us by subscribing, and that way you don't miss out on any of our awesome content. Yay! It's a win-win. Number 9. AMAS. AMAS is one of my favorite new mutants that I've met in the last little while. They appear in the current Marauders run that started this year in 2022 and is written by Steve Orlando. AMAS was created by Orlando and Eleonora Carlini. This mutant is wild. We don't know that much about them yet, but what we do know is that they can basically combine mutant powers and mutants together. Hence their name of AMAS, because they amass things. They hail from a hidden ancient civilization of mutants known as the Threshold that existed eons ago, and which we are only now learning about in the comics, and this was actually said to be like the first ever mutants to have existed. As of Marauders issue number 9, we do not know this mutant's limitations yet when it comes to their powers, and so I could definitely see them being a character who could easily break the Marvel Cinematic Universe. If they are as powerful as I suspect they are, and I suspect they're probably pretty powerful. Number 8. Ex Nihilo. If we get Ex Nihilo in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, it will probably mean the coming of the Builders, which would be a whole world-destroying event. Worlds-destroying actually, since they basically obliterated multiple planets in order to reset the universe and start again because of what they had learned about the coming incursions. Ex Nihilo was known as one of the Gardeners. He was created by the Builders, as were all the Gardeners. Their goal was to perfect species on planets and create life, which sounds great until you realize the level of power needed to do such a thing. Ex Nihilo could both create matter and manipulate time, which is pretty crazy. Number 7. Ulysses. Ulysses is an inhuman superhero who created a lot of commotion as a result of his powers and, well, just existing. Ulysses was actually the central cause of Civil War II. His powers allowed him to get visions of possible futures, with it believed the more clear his visions became, the more likely these futures were to happen. As a result, the heroes became divided into two camps when it came to how to best utilize Ulysses and his immense power. One camp was headed by Carol Danvers' Captain Marvel, who hoped to utilize Ulysses' powers and visions to prevent tragic and devastating events before they happened, thereby saving countless lives, but of course at the cost of punishing people before they'd even really done anything wrong. Whereas Tony Stark's Iron Man headed the second camp of heroes, who weren't as willing to put all their faith in Ulysses' visions, especially at the cost of compromising the freedom of those who had possibly not even done anything wrong yet. If you'd like to avoid Civil War II from happening, a good way to do so would be by us never getting Ulysses in the MCU, which could create a lot of craziness. Number 6. Powerhouse. Powerhouse is the codename for Franklin Richards, the son of Susan Storm Richards aka the Invisible Woman and Reed Richards aka Mr. Fantastic, both of the superhero team the Fantastic Four. When Franklin was just an infant, he caused a whole bunch of trouble due to being so powerful. In fact, he caused so much trouble that at one point Reed had to intervene by shutting down young Franklin's mind. At this point, Franklin was so powerful and his powers so out of control that he could have easily and accidentally destroyed the Earth. And this is when Franklin was just basically a baby still. Franklin might not have his powers currently in the comics, but if we were to see Powerhouse at peak strength and power level, he would definitely be far too dangerous a character for the MCU. Number 5. HYPERION. HYPERION would be a challenging one I think to have in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, due to his similarity to one of the distinguished competition's main heroes, Superman. HYPERION is in essence like Marvel's response to a character like Superman, and he also recently appeared in the comics and was revealed to be problematic in his approach to heroics. That is to say, through getting to know this version of him and this version of his team, the Squadron Supreme of America, that recently appeared in the comics during the recent Heroes Reborn 2021 event, we learned that these heroes were a lot more shady than our standard Earth 616 heroes that we're used to seeing on teams like the Avengers. That being said, this was an alternate version of Milton, but still I think a lot of problems would exist with trying trying to incorporate this character into the MCU. Number 4, One Above All. The One Above All isn't ranking lower because I consider them to be less powerful than those ranked above them on this list. I just feel like they might not be as great of a threat to the MCU if they were to appear. But still, they probably never should, because they could kill the whole art of storytelling by becoming our Deus Ex Machina plot device. One Above All is basically the god of the Marvel Universe. And while it might be cool to see them appear as an allusion to the founders of Marvel Comics who made it what it is today, they definitely could easily derail plots or be used as a plot device to save the day, but at the expense of cheapening the stakes of a story. That being said, they did appear in Immortal Hulk, and I feel like that story actually utilized this character really well. So they could appear in a way that wouldn't cause harm to the universe or plots, but it would still be a hard line to walk, I think. Number 3, Sentry. The Sentry is a hero that might not only be too dangerous for the MCU, but also might be considered a little too dark as well when it comes to his origins. His danger levels though come from the fact that the Sentry not only has the power of like a ton of suns within him, but also the fact that within the Sentry lives the Void, the hero's alter ego who we initially thought was created by a split in his personality. But we would later learn in a retcon was an idea implanted in Sentry's mind thanks to the manipulations of villain Mastermind. While Sentry might be the strongest hero this Earth has ever seen, the Void is definitely one of the most devastating villains as well, and they're usually a package deal. Not always, but usually. It's kind of what makes a Sentry interesting, so I think you gotta at least have the Void there to begin with. Number 2, Hope Summers. Hope has to be one of the most destructive superheroes that we could see in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. MCU mutants are coming. Eventually. Kamala Khan is already implied to be one of them as per the origin story her creators always wanted for her in the comics, but got denied at the time of her creation due to the push of the Inhumans in comics, as you know, the rights to the X-Men and the mutants were all wonky due to Fox's involvement. But now the mutants are back with Marvel thanks to their partnership with Disney, who acquired Fox, and all is well. But not if we get mutants who then get erased from existence by House of M. Hope was originally known as the Mutant Messiah. She was the first mutant baby to have been born since House of M, and her powers put her on another level when it comes to heroics. She can take on the power of any other mutant in her vicinity, and get those powers at peak level and skill set. Add in the fact that Hope's birth also caused an all-out war between the mutants during Messiah Complex, and yeah, having Hope in the MCU would both be challenging and be probably pretty dangerous. Number 1, Squirrel Girl. Despite no longer being fully considered unbeatable thanks to a fight in the Fantastic Four where it's implied that Squirrel Girl was beaten off panel, Squirrel Girl still has beaten a lot of big names when it comes to villains in Marvel Comics, and has also helped to reform some major ones as well. In fact, this is kind of Dorian's like whole secret to success when it comes to beating her foes. She usually does so by befriending them and encouraging them to do and be better, which usually, you know, just defeats them by making them good people. She's inspirational, and hey, it's contagious. And while she has lost once, I think her track record of beating almost all villains she runs into makes her simply too dangerous for the MCU. I mean, almost no one would be able to stand against her. Doesn't matter who shows up, Thanos, Kang, she'd be like, look, why don't we just have a conversation, and then it would all be resolved. Like Black Panther in What If, when he was Star-Lord and he was like, I just had a conversation with Thanos and then we fixed it.
Kicking off the list at number 10, we have Hawkeye. As funny as it might sound to put Hawkeye first on a list about dangerous Avengers members, he's not to be messed with. And in the MCU, Hawkeye's had it pretty rough. He had his mind controlled in the first Avengers, he took out eyeballs for Loki, yuck. And then he comes out of retirement for like 2 hours, comes Civil War, and then he gets arrested and sent to the raft. And then his family disappears. So we catch up with Clint 5 years after Thanos snapped his dirty fingers, and we find him in Tokyo, and he's not the same guy that we once knew at all. He's taken out criminals, this time he's doing it the hard way, and he's suited up as a different character altogether. He's back this time as Ronin. And this is a dark time. He takes out so many people, and he takes them out violently as well. He uses his skills to do it in such a brutal assassin way. I mean, I know you're upset because your entire family disappeared while you were eating hot dogs with mayo. That's fair, but so was the rest of the world, okay? They were affected too. Stick to the arrow, leave the hood and the sword down. Stay Hawkeye, stay nice. And before we continue on with this list of dangerous Avenger members, guys, if you want to go ahead and give this video a thumbs up, that would mean a lot. It helps this channel out so much. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much. Now let's get right back into this list. Number 9, Bucky Barnes. Near the end of World War II, Bucky and Cap were trying to disarm a bomb on a plane while taking down Baron Zemo. Now the bomb went off, hurling Steve and Bucky into the freezing waters, and well, as for Cap, you know his story. He remained frozen, came back out of the ice years later, still mentally and physical at his peak, but this wasn't the case for Bucky. His body fell into the freezing waters, and at the time, a Soviet spy submarine was in the area crossing between the English Channel, so they scooped him up, made him a fancy new metal arm, brainwashed him, and turned him into a brutal assassin with the help of Hydra's own super soldier serum. He joined the Avengers officially in the New Avengers issue 48. Now, Bucky is of course considered an Avenger now in the MCU, but during the Civil War storyline, we saw just how brutal he could be as an assassin. He took out all of the Avengers once he broke out with Zemo's help. Number 8, Sentry. He made his first appearance in Sentry issue 1. Meet Robert Reynolds. He was a struggling addict who made his way into a laboratory and discovered something called the Golden Sentry Serum. And then he got the surprise of a lifetime when he was given the power of 1 million exploding suns. Now that plus a homemade costume equals superhero. Sounds pretty good. But he's a quite dangerous superhero. I mean, of course, the whole million sun thing. Robert fought alongside the X-Men, the Fantastic Four, and then of course, the New Avengers. Things changed for Robert when Norman Osborn decided to put together a team of his own. This was the Dark Avengers, where he made the switch. Sentry's a pretty powerful being as well. I mean, he was once a horseman of death, where he even considered himself as the heir to Apocalypse, so he's up there. Number 7, Wolverine. James Howlett, a Canadian mutant and popular member of the X-Men who we all should know by now. He describes himself as being the best at what he does, but what he does isn't very nice. He has an accelerated healing factor, sharp senses, sharp claws, and of course the adamantium coating on his bones thanks to the Weapon X program. So the claws are what make Logan unique. He is a fierce, brutal warrior with them, and he has the rage of a beast and the soul of a samurai. Put that all together and you have quite a fierce Avenger. He joined the Avengers in New Avengers issue 6. He obtains the Muramasa blade, and so begins his quest for revenge. He's pretty dangerous too, the whole healing factor, the rage, his memories coming and going. I'm really hoping that with Deadpool 3 in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, now that Marvel has him back, I really hope we can see the Avengers recruit these mutants on the big screen as well. It'd be fun to see them together. After all, Deadpool 3 was supposed to be a road trip with them too as well, so we got to see somewhat of a version of that. Number 6, Mockingbird. Barbara Morse made her comic book debut in Astonishing Tales issue 12. She studied at Georgia Institute of Technology, specializing in biology, and she worked with Dr. Wilma Calvin on Project Gladiator. Now the project was set to recreate the super soldier serum that created Captain America. Everybody was trying this. It worked and failed multiple times. But during this time, S.H.I.E.L.D. trained Bobby to be a spy. They also gave her the cool nickname of Agent 19. I mean, yeah, she was so good at gymnastics and flips, it would be stupid not to make her a superhero at this point. So she became Mockingbird in the 80s with Marvel Team Up issue 95. In 2011, she became a super soldier in New Avengers 13, so she finally has powers. When she was on the verge of dying, she was injected with this other version of the serum, and it saved her, thankfully. But it of course also gave her new super soldier abilities. She's skilled in hand-to-hand combat, like Kung Fu and Taekwondo, and she's known to be pretty dangerous when fighting in close quarters. Of course, being familiar in weaponry as well. She was one of the founding members of the West Coast Avengers, but she also was part of the New Avengers and the Secret Avengers as well. So she's been around for quite a bit. Fans actually got their hope up that Barbara would appear in the MCU. They actually thought Erin Kellyman was Mockingbird, but alas, she was revealed to be Flag Smasher, or leader of the Flag Smashers in the MCU. Number 5, She-Hulk. Jennifer Walters made her comic book debut in Savage She-Hulk issue 1. She's a brilliant lawyer who just happened to be the cousin of Bruce Banner. So when she was shot by Nicholas Trask, yeah, she was shot while she was defending a criminal who had been double-crossed by Trask. And she was also spreading rumors that she had enough evidence to lock away Trask, so he lashed out and shot her. So now, in order to save her life, a blood transfusion was required from none other than her family, the Hulk himself. She joined the Avengers in issue 221. Now, what makes Jen Walters stand out as a Hulk is that she's able to control her abilities, unlike Bruce. Tatiana Mason Lee is actually set to play the powerful Avenger in Disney's upcoming She-Hulk, set to release in 2022, and I can't wait to see how powerful she is on the big screen as well. Number 4, US Agent. John Walker, perhaps one of the most dangerous members to ever join the Avengers ranks. We're seeing this unfold currently in the MCU in Falcon and the Winter Soldier. So this war hero in the show was nominated to become the replacement of Steve Rogers, and this happened in the comics as well. This happened when Steve Rogers had to abandon his identity due to the Red Skull's manipulation of the Commission on Superhuman Activities. So somebody had to suit up, so the government needed this new figure, and in issue 333 of Captain America, titled The Replacement, we saw just who that was. He took on the role of Captain America briefly, but after he left, he returned again, but this time in his own version of a blacked out Captain America suit, and the shield is also less spangly. He comes back as US agent and he's put to the test. He's forced to battle an Ironmonger and he wants to take it down alone because, you know, he's cool. The shield seems to work out for him pretty well, and in the comics, it was actually Taskmaster who trained him how to properly use that shield, who we have yet to see in the MCU because Black Widow is still delayed. Now yes, eventually he did join the Avengers. In West Coast Avengers issue 45, the government wanted an official in there to make sure all was running smoothly, so they sent in John Walker. I feel like the finale for Falcon and the Winter Soldier is going to be the introduction of the Thunderbolts, and I really hope US Agent joins a version of the Dark Avengers, because he's an amazing actor. I'm not quite done with him yet. Number 3, Quicksilver. The twin brother of Wanda Maximoff. I figured it was a great time to mention this speedy Avenger. Pietro Maximoff is the twin brother of Wanda, and in Avengers West Coast issue 57, he joined the team. Now, Pietro had been trouble for the team for a while now. I mean, he convinced Wanda to do what she did in the House of M storyline. He's framed the Avengers for treason at one point, and he was fully okay with exposing his daughter Luna to Terrigen. He's kind of the worst. That's actually how Luna got her abilities, but still, bad parenting 101. In West Coast Avengers issue 33, Magneto's bloodline got the best of him, and he got fellow Avengers captured by the communist gang. Even in the MCU, Quicksilver was first introduced as a villain. He and Wanda were actually both Team Hydra in the start. Now his super speed is not to be toyed with, he's quite powerful. In Marvel Zombies, Quicksilver gets tricked by Mystique, he gets bit, and then with his incredible speed powers, he's able to turn everybody into zombies all around the world within minutes. The situation went from bad to unstoppable thanks to Quicksilver. Number 2, Scarlet Witch. She's a daughter of Magneto and the twin brother of Quicksilver, who I just mentioned, so now's a pretty good time to mention her as well. She was on her father's Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, but most of us would consider Wanda one of the strongest Avengers. She's one of the biggest Marvel characters ever, and during those events of M-Day, she spoke 3 words: no more mutants. And just like that, a mass amount of mutants were depowered, or worse. Now that large number was 986,000, so only leaving a couple hundred left. In the MCU as well, we just watched Wanda go through quite the trauma. In WandaVision, we saw this over the course of 9 weeks, where she had a mental breakdown kind of similar to M-Day, and she trapped Westview in her hex. Now, of course, by the end of the show, she frees everybody and things look pretty back to normal-ish, but with that after-credit scene of her studying the Darkhold, and with the given knowledge that Wanda is in the next Doctor Strange movie, I feel like we've only scratched the surface of the Scarlet Witch's true abilities. And finally, coming in at number 1, we have Vision. Of course, Wanda's hubby, android hubby. The Vision is an advanced android to say the least. I mean, he came back from the dead in WandaVision and now he's matching his West Coast Avengers look more than ever, that all-white android look. He was first introduced in Avengers issue 57, created by Ultron using parts of the original Human Torch and the mind of Wonder Man. A little different than the MCU. He then turned on his original creator and joined the Avengers. In the MCU, he's created for Ultron's new body, but with the addition of the Mind Stone and a little bit of Jarvis, we now have this android Avenger. But during the Secret Empire storyline, Vision was part of Hydra's Avengers when they were taking over the world. He used an AI virus to take him over, he being Arnim Zola. A robot gone rogue is quite compelling, especially when he's as strong as the Vision. In the first issue, he's put to the test when the other Avengers are fighting him. He's easily able to take them all on. As long as he's on the good side, we should be okay. Otherwise, it's just gonna be a hot mess. Kicking off the list at number 10, we have the Casket of Ancient Winters. This one made its comic book debut in Thor issue 346. And it made it to the big screen in 2011 in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Thor 1. Or just Thor, I guess. Thor sounds weird by itself. It's a relic that doubled down as a deadly weapon, belonging to the Frost Giants. It has the ability to unleash the fury of 1,000 killing winters. And it contains the Imbolwinter of Ymir, the most powerful ice giant of them all. So you open this thing and you better be ready for quite a rush. I mean, Surtur once used this artifact in an attempt to end Thor's life. Now this artifact is known for its power, so Thor took that back right quick and guarded it. Nobody should be touching this thing or opening it, in whatever case. But of course, there's more than one set of eyes on this thing. Next, it was taken by the dark elf Yargfelm, but before the dude even had the chance to use it, Malekith took it and attacked Asgard with it. It took all of Heimdall's strength to break through the ice when Loki used the casket on him in Thor 1. Wow, that sounds pretty cold and painful. I already live in Canada, so I want no part of that. And before we continue on with this list, guys, if you want to go ahead and give us a thumbs up, that would be great. Those likes really do a wonder for our channel. Thank you so much for your support. Now let's get right back into this list of magical Marvel Marvel weapons. Number 9. The Crimson Gem of CYTTORAK. This bright red gem made its debut in X-Men issue 12 back in 1965. It's actually the key behind Kane Marco becoming the Juggernaut, who also made his first appearance in that same issue. It shows Kane and Charles Xavier when they were serving together in the same unit, but when Kane went under fire, he ran off to take cover in a nearby cave. The cave was in fact the lost temple of CYTTORAK, so Kane grabbed this glowing ruby from the lap of an idol, read the inscription, and possessed the power of one of the 8 magical beings that made a totem containing a mere fraction of their power ages ago. Now whoever came into contact would, well, look at Kane Marco. They would become a human juggernaut. So now he's just unstoppable. He's a beast. There also exists a world inside this gem of CYTTORAK, and it's called the Crimson Cosmos. It's another dimension where time doesn't move, and speaking of gems, our number 1 pick may just hit close to home, but we'll get to that later. Number 8, Captain America's shield. One of the most well-known weapons at this time, and yes, I'm going to call it a weapon because it's a vibranium disc that you bounce off of 9 people's heads and then you catch it. That's a weapon in my books. But it also doubles down as a symbol of patriotism. It's made of vibranium, steel alloy, and proto-adamantium, which is basically Wakandan vibranium, so it's unbreakable. Most of the time. It first appeared in Captain America Comics issue 2, and it was created by Dr. Myron McLean. He was asked by the government to make an impenetrable substance for tanks. Now this was during World War II, so it made sense. So he tried to make this alloy as strong as adamantine, which was the same material that made up Hercules' golden mace. Now eventually it became a disc, and eventually it became a shield that Captain America was given in issue 255. The shield was passed down to Sam from Steve at the end of Avengers Endgame, and now we're seeing the length that some will go for that disc. Number 7, All Black, the NECROSWORD. The first symbiote was manifested from the shadow of the evil deity Null, and brought together using the power of a celestial, a sword made of living darkness. In King in Black Return of the Valkyrie issue 2, All Black became tethered to the corpse of a celestial's body, the head became the mining city Nowhere, and the body was turned into the world of the dead. So this dark afterlife, a home for all the souls that the NECROSWORD has taken. Just a Tim Burton hotel of scariness. So when Gore bonded with the All Black, he lived for over 3,000 years. So it keeps you young. Maybe that's Paul Rudd's secret this whole time. It's super powerful as well. If you think you can just throw the NECROSWORD into the sun and have it devoured and call it a day, you're horribly mistaken. It would just consume the star. There's another weapon as well that was just introduced in King in Black, but again, I'll mention that later on in the list. Number 6, the Cosmic Cube. Despite the fact that Thanos breaks this to pieces with his bare hands in the opening of Infinity War, the Cosmic Cube is among one of the most powerful items in Marvel Comics. Thanos is just that strong. It appeared first in Tales of Suspense issue 79. It can control matter and energy, of course being controlled by whomever can wield it. Now there are objects in Marvel Comics that look the same, and they're called cosmic containment units, so maybe that's why Thanos could break it to access the Mind Stone. That's our excuse. That, and he had that raw dad strength, that helped too. In Captain Marvel issue 31, Thanos used the Cosmic Cube to become one with the universe, and this allowed him to take on Kronos. They have a straight up mind war, both of them diving into each other's subconscious, trying to break their soul. It was just a staring contest of the cosmos. Number 5, Mjolnir.
What is the name of Thor's hammer?
Mjolnir?
Jonathan?
So close. Mjolnir, the hammer of the gods, the mighty mallet. It first showed up in Journey into Mystery issue 83. It was created out of Asgardian metal, but Odin was the one who made it indestructible, and it's able to break the armor of a celestial. That's how strong this hammer is. The hammer allows its users to fly though, which is pretty fun. Thor, having great strength, can huck this thing, and the leather strap pulls him off the ground, flying at the speed of sound, making him invisible to the naked eye. And if you're somehow deemed worthy to wield the hammer, not only will it feel cool and you'll look like Tim the Toolman Taylor, but you'll also obtain the powers of Thor and access other mystical properties of said hammer. Playing with the forces of the universe, Thor is at one point able to travel backwards in time and forwards in time just by swinging his hammer twice the speed of light. Only a handful have wielded the hammer. Captain America did, of course, in the movie Avengers Endgame, but in the comics he did so for the first time in Thor 390, and again in Fear Itself issue 7. Wonder Woman actually was once deemed worthy in a 1990s crossover, Marvel vs. DC issue 2. Number 4, the Darkhold. At the very end of Marvel's WandaVision, we see Wanda tucked away safely in the woods, studying this book, studying the Darkhold, the Book of the Damned. But what exactly is this thing? Why is Wanda studying it? And are we screwed? Probably. The Darkhold first appeared in comics in Marvel Spotlight issue 4. The Elder God Chthon fled Earth billions of years ago, but before he left, he wrote down all of his evil spells into this indestructible book at a chamber called the Darkhold inside Mount Wundagore. But if you think you can just read these scrolls and make a fireworks show, you're mistaken, not without becoming possessed by Chthon first. Number 3, Kang's Time Chair. Who would have thought that a chair would make this list? Now, of course, this chair was created by Kang the Conqueror, so he can go anywhere in space and time, all while getting a back massage. How lovely. It appeared for the first time in Avengers issue 8. And even Thor finds his confidence disturbing. The guy's just hanging out, laying back like he's on a beanbag chair, just chilling. He's just straight chilling up while the Avengers are attacking him. But he's fine. Why is he fine? Because this chair has got his back. It's equipped with an advanced laser defense system, a force field, and probably a cup holder. Kang used the chair to explore Captain America's World War II time, and then once it was actually taken over by Iron Man, where he revealed to Kang that his 41st century tech is based off of Stark's 21st century tech. We love time tech, doesn't hurt the brain at all. Number 2, Venom's new axe. Spoilers coming ahead for King in Black. Now, you've been warned, you had like 3 seconds, come on. When it comes to the King in Black, you're gonna need a pretty powerful weapon to make a dent. The Avengers rush in and Venom drops down. No need guys, we got this, he says. Eddie summons MJOLNIR and merges it together with the Silver Surfer's board, so now we get this epic weapon. One of the mightiest axes to ever be made. Even Cyclops has no idea what he just saw, like the rest of us. Eddie Brock escaped Null's God Hive and bonded with the Enigma Force, the All-Powers. And Thor's hammer already did a number on his jaw in King in Black issue 3, but combined with the board, it's even more magnificent and pretty unstoppable. And finally, coming in at number 1, you guessed it, the Infinity Gauntlet with stones. Perhaps one of the more common Marvel weapons at this point, it made its first dazzling appearance in Silver Surfer Volume 3, issue 44, back in the 90s. It holds the 6 Infinity Stones, being soul, mind, power, time, reality, and space. But it wasn't until 1991, until the end of that issue, until readers saw what this Glove of Destiny is really capable of. So just like we saw on the big screen in 2018, the Gauntlet and the stones allow Thanos to snap away half of the life in all of the universe. And if that doesn't cut it and somehow the Avengers come snooping around, we see another creative use with this gauntlet. See, in part 4 of the Infinity Gauntlet, Thanos at one point weakens himself using the stones because he just wants to take on the Avengers in a more fair fight. That's how confident he is with his gauntlet. He just wants to impress death. I mean, it's pretty creative and brutal how the Mad Titan uses the gauntlet. I mean, Cyclops gets his head stuck in a clear block of force, Vision gets his insides ripped out, and he uses the gauntlet to keep Nebula the opposite of healthy for most of this event.
Number 10, the Hulk. The story we're most familiar with is one that I must start with. With skin that is impenetrable to just about anything and super bad super strength, the Incredible Hulk is a force you don't want in any kind of way. Created by the late Jack Kirby and Stan Lee, the Hulk is created when Bruce Banner is accidentally exposed to a gamma bomb. Making his first debut in the Incredible Hulk number 1 in 1962, we've seen many different variations of the big green guy, portrayed by actors such as Lou Ferrigno, Eric Bana, Edward Norton, and most notably Mark Ruffalo.
Yeah, Mark Ruffalo.
He gets stronger the more angry you make him, which makes fighting this guy a really tough time. He even lifted an entire island in Secret Wars. An island. Who do you guys think played Bruce Banner the best in the movies, by the way? Let us know in the comments. We're curious over here. Number 9, She-Hulk. Now, of course, we have to include Banner's cousin, Jennifer Walters. So, while on the verge of death, Bruce Banner gave Jennifer a very small transfusion of Hulk's blood to save her life. What a great cousin. All my cousins do is comment how lame my selfies are on Facebook. The transfusion gave her a very mild version of the Hulk's powers. So yes, She-Hulk is green, and yes, she gets stronger the angrier she gets, but she can change whenever she wants. She's the Hulk, but she still has a hand on the wheel, basically. Now, there are times where she gets a bit too angry and can't control herself, but most of the time, she knows what she's doing. Tatiana Mason Lee will play She-Hulk in her upcoming series on Disney+, set to be released in 2022, and we're all looking forward to that. I know it's gonna be great. Number 8, Doc Green. So after Hulk had gotten shot in the head by the Ancient Order of the Shield, Tony Stark came in yet again to save the day. How, you ask? Well, he used his Extremis virus and injected it into the Hulk to undo damage from the bullet. Not a bad idea, Stark, not a bad idea. We'll give you that. The only side effect was the brand new genius personality for the green guy. That's right, the Hulk had now acquired Banner's smarts. So the next logical step for Doc Green was to create a serum that strips the powers from the other Hulks, because he didn't want there to be any others like him. Especially being smart and all, he knew it wasn't wasn't a good idea. Eventually the virus had gotten removed and Doc Green reverted back into the Hulk. Thank God. I feel like we don't need a smart Hulk. Like Valkyrie said in Endgame, I think I liked you better either of the other ways. She's onto something. 7. Savage She-Hulk. She's the daughter of Hulk and Thundra, so you already know we gotta include her in this list. She's a very unique version of the hero. For starters, she doesn't get stronger when she gets angry. Instead, she becomes more powerful the more calm she is. That'd be a strange sight to see. Well, I'm going to kill you now. That's wild. So where did these powers come from? Well, when Thundra went back in time, she fought the Hulk. But then the two became friends by the end of it and even shared a kiss. How lovely. So once back in her own timeline, she used the leftover Hulk DNA, added it to her DNA, and then poof, you have Lyra, the savage She-Hulk. Number 6, Maestro. Okay, remember in Avengers Endgame when Scott Lang tests out the quantum tunnel? He goes from being an adult to an old man to a baby back to an adult. It's actually a pretty comical scene, but what if one of the other Avengers went in? Like, what if you aged the Hulk? Well, making his first appearance in a vision in the Incredible Hulk Volume 2 issue 401, Maestro was the main antagonist in the Incredible Hulk Future Imperfect. The story takes place about 100 or so years in the future after a nuclear war has put the planet close to extinction. So an alternate version of the Hulk, Maestro, had been absorbing all the nuclear radiation the entire time and ended up becoming the strongest thing on the planet. Massive increases in strength and anger, plus the brains of Banner made him arguably unstoppable. I would love to see this version of Hulk on the big screen. In fact, I'd love to see an old version of pretty much any of the Avengers. Not just a scene with old Cap, because you know, then I'll cry. Again. Oh, speaking of Old Man Hulk, number 5. Old Man Hulk. In the Old Man Logan storyline, Hulk was actually a villain. Traitor. Alongside Dr. Doom, Magneto, and Abomination, he actually ends up being the final villain for the story. He ended up having kids with none other than his own cousin, Jennifer Walters, aka She-Hulk. Okay, interesting choice. Well, it's because she couldn't be poisoned by the radiation, so it made sense to do it, I guess. After they had referred to themselves as Hulk Gang, what up? Some members of the family ended up killing Wolverine's family. Not a good idea. So retired Old Man Logan Wolverine got pissed and killed basically everybody except old Banner and one young offspring. Banner then turns into a very large, very angry monster and swallows Wolverine whole. That's right, he eats him. See, normally you would think that's the end of it, but that is until Wolverine cut through him from the inside and broke free, killing Old Man Hulk in the process. I don't know who I'd rather be in that situation. Like, would you rather be swallowed by a Hulk or would you rather swallow a sharp Old Man Logan? Both sound unpleasant. Number 4, War Hulk. In X-Men Apocalypse, we caught a glimpse at the Horsemen. Apocalypse surrounded himself with the likes of Storm, Cyclops, Gambit, and Archangel before going for Magneto himself. But what if he recruited the Hulk? Well, that's exactly what sort of happened in the Onslaught storyline. After the Hulk and Banner split into 2 separate units and were on different Earths, so the angry green guy ended up being recruited to serve as War, thus giving us War Hulk. This version is a treat. So Apocalypse added to his already terrifying set of skills. The beast was unstoppable at this point. Even Apocalypse had to put a cap on what he was able to do because, well, I mean, look at him. Times like these, I really wish Marvel had all the rights to their Fox characters. As much as I love Days of Future Past, this would have been a great way to mix up Banner's storyline in the MCU drastically. Eventually, we got to see this beast version of Hulk in Thor Ragnarok based on the storyline none other than number 3, Planet Hulk. Arguably the best scene from Thor Ragnarok is when Hulk is the champion of the arena at Sakaar. Once Thor realizes that this is not the same Hulk he'd worked with in previous Avengers movies, he had to really put up a fight, and it was awesome to see. To see those two battle it out again after their 2012 Avengers fight, what a ride. This plot comes from the Planet Hulk storyline. So after the Illuminati decided he's too much of a threat to Earth, they send him off on a mission to destroy a rogue satellite. Survey says that was a lie. They were actually intending to send him off to a peaceful planet. But wormholes exist, so the trip went south and Hulk ended up landing on Sakaar, where he is forced to fight for the planet's emperor, the Red King, which in the movie was actually the Grandmaster, played by the most handsome man on the planet, Jeff Goldblum. And if you haven't seen Thor Ragnarok, do yourself a favor and go watch it twice. Hulk plus weapons equals scary. Number 2, World War Hulk. In the sequel to Planet Hulk, Hulk heads to New York City and gives the Illuminati, which is Iron Man, Doctor Strange, Reed Richards, an ultimatum to turn themselves in. The Hulk blames them for the death of his pregnant wife, so he's not too patient. He gives them 24 hours before he would then destroy Manhattan. That's the scariest thing. Imagine seeing that on the news. You're like, can we go? Can we get the hell out of here? Literally nobody can stop him. Doctor Strange even got in his head and tried to talk him down, and it of course does not work. Iron Man attempts to level the beast with his Hulkbuster armor, but we all know how that would go. It fails. For a guy who gets stronger the angrier he gets, this is quite the event. I feel like this would have been a great on-screen plot as well. I mean, if Banner had come back from Sakaar still angry and out of control, who knows what he would have done to the Avengers? Especially if Nat wasn't around? Oh boy. And finally, number 1, Amadeus Cho. Making his debut in Amazing Fantasy Volume 2, number 15, Korean-American raised in Arizona, Amadeus Cho, participated in a quiz show named Brain Fight. How fitting. At just the age of 15, Amadeus won that quiz show. He won $5,000 while being deemed the 7th smartest man in the world. Not a bad title at all. I think I'm like number 9, maybe 10, I don't know. 11? Really? Okay. The organizer of the quiz show is none other than Pythagoras Dupree. He was the 6th smartest man in the world and basically just wanted to find the biggest brain and take out the competition. Pythagoras sent out a squad of goons to kill Amadeus. Barely escaping, he ran away and then he met the Incredible Hulk. Years later, Amadeus would eventually become totally awesome Hulk. See, he got stuck with a dangerous amount of radiation that should have made him go mad, but instead he used special nanites to absorb the Hulk's powers. Nice. He took pride in trying to be a better, smarter Hulk. What a good guy, what a good kid, rather. At one point, he actually exiled himself into space on a satellite, just so he could study himself and make sure he still has the ability to control everything that's going on.